Hello everyone and welcome to The No Show. I'll be your host Nathan Orenstein and today I'm going to be reviewing Thunderbolts. Thunderbolts is written by Eric Pearson and Joanna Calo, directed by Jake Schreier, and stars Florence Pugh, Sebastian Stan, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Pullman, David Harbour, Wyatt Russell, and Hannah John-Kamen. When a group of anti-heroes are caught in a deadly trap where they're expected to kill each other, they decide to instead work together to stop the person who wronged them. In doing so, they're also forced to confront a seemingly unstoppable new threat, as well as their regretful past. I can't say I had any interest in Thunderbolts. I am so over the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe thing, and after Captain America Brave New World in February, it felt like the studio had officially stopped putting any sort of effort into these things. Couple that with the fact that we're basically getting a bunch of anti-hero side characters teaming up in a way that felt eerily similar to 2016 Suicide Squad, and my expectations were at an all-time low. Well, in a truly shocking upset, Marvel made a movie that doesn't feel like every single one of its other 30-plus movies, and it's all the better for it. The most notable deviation from the typical MCU formula here is that Thunderbolts actually kind of feels like it was made for adults, which I can't say about any other MCU movie. And no, Deadpool doesn't count. That's for adults in the same way that South Park is for adults. No, I'm talking about the way that this is tackling some pretty heavy themes of depression and loneliness and guilt and grief, pretty much mental health at large. Compared to other superhero movies, it's very small scale and very grounded, which allows us to see these personal issues hitting these characters even harder. The movie is also pretty bleak as a whole, even through the typical Marvel humor, and it's much more concerned with showing us the inner struggles of these characters rather than an onslaught of firefights and CGI battles. Don't get me wrong, there's still plenty of fun to be had here, between some really funny comedic relief from David Harbour's Red Guardian to some legitimately great close quarters battles. But overall, this reads much more as a drama than any other Marvel movie that's come before it, and I think overall, this was a fantastic change of pace. None of these characters are heroes in the traditional sense. Hell, none of them could even carry a movie on their own if I'm being completely honest. But put together in this scenario where they're forced to confront each other as well as their darker sides of themselves while still teaming up, it really allows their humanity to shine through, and it feels more like people teaming up rather than superheroes. And I do apologize for the vagueness when talking about the themes and how they pertain to the story. I just don't want to spoil anything. This movie really does lead with its themes first, though, as they tie heavily into the central plot and conflict, even if that is a bit of a double-edged sword by the end of things. For as refreshing as it is to have such heavy and interesting themes in a movie like this, it does feel like they're stretched a little bit thin by the end, almost as if Marvel's waving it in your face that yes, they are indeed capable of making a movie like this. But all in all, it's a very strong change and one that's felt throughout the entirety of the film. Let's get a bit more granular though. As this is so small scale and character-centric, let's talk about the characters. Florence Pugh's Yelena is a pretty obvious standout here, as she's both the leader and the most recognizable actor from this core group. But Pugh is genuinely great here, and she's able to provide a lot of emotional depth to a character that really needed that for this film to work. The other standout for me is Pullman as Bob, who is going to be tricky to talk about for spoiler-y reasons, but I'll say that he's not the typical character you see in a movie like this, as he's struggling with crippling mental health issues as a result from his past with addiction and an abusive childhood. And Pullman captures this all so well as a man who's clearly going through it, but also just wants to be part of something bigger than himself. I already mentioned David Harbour, someone I've admittedly never been a fan of, but I gotta admit that he fully won me over here with this comedy. The rest of the cast and characters I think are more of a mixed bag. Wyatt Russell as John Walker, Julia Louis-Dreyfus as CIA Director Valentina, and Sebastian Stan as Bucky Barnes are all fine, but nothing special. And Hannah John-Kamen's Ghost just feels like a very underutilized character here, but she's basically the only member of the team with actual superpowers, so it makes sense that they included her. It's a cast that's greater than the sum of its parts for sure, but even then, it does feel a bit imbalanced. There's also just typical Marvel issues here, as Thunderbolts doesn't completely rid itself from the MCU formula. Plenty of horrible one-liners that are never funny, plenty of forced connections to other Marvel projects. These things are just always going to hold Marvel movies back till the day they stop making them, and Thunderbolts is no different. But overall, there really aren't many issues I have with it, even if we get more granular. I thought the movie looked a lot better than previous Marvel films, probably due to the more grounded nature and less obvious reliance on CGI. The score is a bit more low-key than usual, but it fits the vibe of the film very well. Even the editing is pretty solid, which frankly isn't something I usually notice with blockbusters such as this one. It's not just a great Marvel movie, it's straight up a great movie, period. Thunderbolts is a breath of fresh air coming from Marvel, and as someone who's been very disappointed with their past half-decade or so, this really shocked me. It just feels so much more mature than their other films, and it rides that well from start to finish. Maybe I'm overrating this just a little because I'm so excited to actually be enjoying a Marvel movie this much. I'll admit that's a possibility, but as it stands, I'm going to be giving Thunderbolts an 8 out of 10. If you enjoyed the review, then feel free to leave a like and subscribe if you're new. And if you've seen Thunderbolts already, I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. I've been Nathan Orenstein with The No Show. Thanks for watching.